order for Donald Trump, how it could impact the former president and Jack Smith's federal election case. And more good news on the economy, what it means for the president and his 2024 strategy. Then the clock is ticking for Congress to pass aid for Ukraine and Israel. What's the holdup in the Senate? As some in the House secretly float expelling another congressman. As the 11th hour gets underway on this Friday night. Greetings, everyone. I'm Simone Sanders Townsend in for Stephanie Rule. Tonight, a major ruling in Donald Trump's federal election interference case means the protective order is back on. A three-judge appeals court panel mostly upheld the original order from the trial judge, but they've narrowed it down. It bans Trump from attacking potential witnesses, court staff, and most prosecutors on the case. However, Trump is allowed to criticize the charges, the Justice Department, and special counsel Jack Smith himself. The judges explained the decision, writing, quote, Trump's public statements pose a significant and imminent threat. But they also said the district court's order, however, sweeps in more protected speech than is necessary. The former lead investigator on the January 6th committee said the judges had to thread the needle on this decision.
I see the logic here, right? The former president is allowed to criticize the process, to criticize the motivation of the Justice Department. And now, after today's ruling by the appeals court, Jack Smith himself, he can't, however, challenge the integrity or say anything intended to influence actual potential witnesses. That is the key, right? It's the potential attempt to say things that put pressure upon or influence witnesses or unfairly disparage them. Criticizing Jack Smith is criticizing the process, and that will have ripple effects on others. It is an imperfect balance, but the court trying very much to protect participants, but protect his free speech right. It makes that March 4th trial date increasingly firm.
Meanwhile, the former president's $250 million civil fraud trial is winding down. He's expected to return to the witness stand on Monday. Today, an accounting expert testifying for the defense told the court that some of his nearly $900,000 in fees were paid by Trump's Save America Political Action Committee. Yesterday, he testified that he saw no evidence of accounting fraud in Trump's business. Meanwhile, we're also following the latest legal developments involving Hunter Biden. The president's son was indicted on 9 tax-related charges on Thursday, including 3 felony counts. Now, the charges, of course, have nothing to do with President Biden. Hunter Biden is also the target of House Republicans who've been investigating him and who are pushing an impeachment inquiry into his father. Biden's son spoke out about the attacks from the Republicans in a podcast recorded before his latest indictment and released today.
As long as my dad is president of the United States, they're not going to stop. They're trying to destroy a presidency. What they're trying to do is they're trying to kill me, knowing that it will be a pain greater than my father could be able to handle.
Hunter Biden was also indicted in September on federal gun charges as part of the special counsel's investigation. With that, let's bring in our leadoff panel. Eugene Daniels is here, White House correspondent for Politico. Eugene Scott is also here, senior politics reporter for Axios. And Paul Butler is here, but not physically with us, and he is a former federal corruption prosecutor at the Department of Justice. Paul, I'm going to start with you, my friend, our resident lawyer. You know, the appeals court, they wrote this. They say, quote, like any other criminal defendant, Mr. Trump has a constitutional right to speak, and his millions of supporters, as well as his millions of detractors, have a right to hear what he has to say. Also, like any other criminal defendant, Mr. Trump does not have an unlimited right to speak. So, Paul, when it comes to Donald Trump, do you think that the appeals court struck the right balance with this particular ruling?
I do. The court shot down his First Amendment arguments, which was what he was arguing the loudest. Remember, Judge Chutkan said, when you're a criminal defendant, you don't get to use all the words. The appeals court basically said the same thing. It said many of Trump's statements threatened the integrity of the court. And the court also said there's this pattern of Trump attacking somebody, and then there's a torrent of threats of retribution and violence against that person. So far in challenging gag orders, Trump is 0 for 2. The gag order in the New York fraud case is reinstated. And now in the federal election interference case, Trump has been schooled that his violent rhetoric has no place in our criminal legal system.
You know, Eugene, hearing that from Paul, some would say that, Judge Tanya Chutkan in the election interference case, she is the judge that made that instituted the original protective order. Before I heard Paul, I wondered if today's ruling made her job harder. What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, much of what she ruled was upheld. I mean, whose job is harder, I would argue, is Trump's lawyers trying to keep him on track and make sure he does not say anything that violates the original or this new revised gag order.
Eugene Daniels, look, this ruling, this does allow Donald Trump to continue to attack Jack Smith. Frankly, something he had been doing even while this ruling was in place. What does that mean for public impressions of this case? Donald Trump has a large microphone, whether people like it or not.
Yeah, I think part of it is a lot of this is already baked in, right? If you're someone who was going to listen to Donald Trump talk about Jack Smith and then hate Jack Smith because of it, you are probably already going to vote for Donald Trump, right? This is so much a part of the electorate as it is right now. They may not know all the details, but they know what team they're supposed to be on. And I agree. I think the idea of Donald Trump not violating this gag order is going to be something very interesting to watch, because he is not someone who has ever really listened to courts when he's out there, and he doesn't read a speech. He's just out there talking, just talking.
He doesn't know what he's going to say yet.
Exactly.
Right? Even if his lawyers are coaching him and he's rehearsing, we know he will go off script, and he may go off script in a way that harms him ultimately.
Well, Paul, let me bring you in here, because my question is, we know he's going to go off script. He regularly does, the former president. Mike Pence, some of former President Trump's officials like Bill Barr, Mark Meadows, his former chief of staff, they could all be witnesses in this case. They are not individuals whom are covered by the exception in this protective order. What's going to happen if Donald Trump violates this order? Do you think we will see what is a stronger penalty, I guess, is my question.
Cash money. He could be charged thousands or tens of thousands of dollars a day, and that actually works. The judge would also have the option of holding him in contempt, and then there would be a separate criminal trial. If he lost that trial, he could be locked up. I doubt if we'll get to that point, but sometimes with Trump, money talks, especially since he's about to lose a whole lot of it in the New York fraud trial.
Well, let's turn to the New York fraud trial. Donald Trump is supposed to testify again on Monday, Paul. Paul, why is he being brought back?
Because he wants to be brought back, because he's using this as a campaign rally. It has nothing to do with his civil case, because he's a lousy witness. Simone, he's taken the stand twice before in this trial. The first time was during the hearing when he was held in violation of the Judge Engoron's gag order. In that hearing, Trump testified for less than 5 minutes, and the judge said he was not credible and fined him $5,000. The next time the prosecutors put him on the stand, the judge said then he was treating the courtroom like a campaign rally, and that was true. But then the judge let him go on, because just like at campaign rallies, Trump started to make all of these damaging admissions. He admitted he looked at the financial statements and made suggestions about them. So I expect more of the same on Monday. Trump will talk about what a great businessman he is and how much bankers and lenders just love him. But none of that is relevant for the fraud that the judges already found him liable for. Simone, this is mainly about how close to $250 million or $300 million that Letitia James wants, that she says the taxpayers of New York are owed. How much of that Trump has to come up with?
Yes, Eugene Daniels, a good reminder. This is about the money, not if he committed fraud. The judges already said, honey, the fraud exists. This, Eugene, feels like a taste of what we could be in for, and when we get into the thick of campaign season next year. We talked about the March 4th, March 5th trial date, Super Tuesday. Donald Trump is going to be in court, at least in one of these cases. Is this Was this our new normal?
Yeah, 100%. If people are already sick of it, they're going to get even more sick of it next year, especially if he becomes the nominee of the Republican Party, as it seems like he will. The thing that's really fascinating is by the end of March, about 70% of the delegates in the Republican primary will be awarded. So we'll basically know who will be the nominee at that point. And if it's Donald Trump, he will still be running in and out of court cases. What's interesting when he's on stages, when he is in front of a judge, he's doing the same thing, because for him, it's not about whether or not the judge believes him or if there is ever going to be a jury believes him. It's about the folks watching, right? It is about him talking about how he's being persecuted, and therefore he's the only thing between you, the voter, and the deep state, right, and the DOJ coming after you. And that's something he's been doing for years. That's what he's focused on.
All the more reason why I think it's important that us in the media apparatus are just very clear about what is being said and what is true and what is a lie. I want to talk about Hunter Biden, Eugene. Today, this sprawling document was unveiled. There are no accusations against the president in that document. This is all about Hunter Biden, his taxes. He paid the taxes back, but 56-page indictment, okay? Yep. I encourage people to go take a look and read it. Do you think that the White House or the campaign apparatus should be concerned? I have my thoughts, but I would love to hear yours.
Well, anytime Hunter Biden is in the news recently, quite frankly, it's not a great thing for the Biden White House if you're looking to win over voters who are already skeptical. The Republicans have worked hard to put some things in the water that make voters uncomfortable with, this Hunter Biden's behavior, whether or not anything has been proven regarding the actual president or not, and it has not. We know this isn't Republicans right here. And so what we're going to probably see is some people looking and paying attention who maybe have turned off, House Republicans, because this doesn't seem politically motivated. However, we do know that Hunter Biden's lawyers have said that if his last name was not Biden, these charges would not have been brought forward.
Yeah, his attorney was on today with my colleague Katie Turr. She did a really great interview, getting him on the record as an exclusive. Eugene, I think that you saw the president come out recently, and he was a little bit more, as I like to, he had some righteous indignation. He slammed the podium. He said there's nothing there. He had a little bit more fire behind these accusations that he there was some impropriety. Do you think that the White House believes that is the tack to take here, or was that just the president coming out here being the president and saying what he felt needed to be said?
I think it's Joe Biden being Joe Biden. Doesn't seem like the administration or the campaign, for that matter, are changing tacks at all when it comes to Hunter Biden. I know largely they think that a lot of this is baked in for the most part, right? That Hunter Biden was litigated in 2020, that Republicans tried in 2022, and that trying to tie him to his father as if they did something illegal hasn't worked so far. And there hasn't been evidence. And over and over again, we saw James Comer do an interview today on another network, and just the anchor talking to him and realizing that they still haven't proven anything at this point. And so the White House feels not good that President Biden is kind of being pulled and tied into these kinds of things, especially when you see House Republicans kind of hurtling toward voting on an impeachment inquiry sometime soon.
I mean, Eugene, you are very in the nitty-gritty, as I like to say, of what is going on in the House and how it's playing out across the country in advance of 2024. How do you think this affects or doesn't affect what the House Republicans are going to do? They literally have zero evidence. And when they last held some impeachment inquiries, their own Republican witnesses came forward and said, I don't think there's enough here for an impeachment inquiry. That to me seemed damning. How is this going to affect what they do?
This doesn't help their case. I mean, this is not anything that suggests very clearly that Joe Biden should not be president. We're talking about tax charges for the most part.
For his son.
For his son, right? And so, and not even when he was in the White House. Like, this is just not something that Republicans are going to be able to stand on and make the case that this individual, the president, should not be in office over. But conservative media is going to continue to push it forward and cause doubt and among their voters. And hopefully that will benefit Republicans, in 2024. That's what those on Congress on Capitol Hill is hoping.
And Simone, if you look at the numbers too, right, you are starting to see a lot of Americans think maybe something did go wrong, right? So there's been a question. Me and my colleague Betsy Woodruff Swan a few weeks ago wrote a story about this, about kind of the new tactic that Hunter himself was taking, which is a little bit more aggressive when it could
he was on a podcast.
Talk on a podcast. And, that is causing a little bit of frustration in Biden world. But some people are like, yes, this should be happening. It should have happened earlier, because now you have, and sometimes 60% of people and upwards saying that maybe something improper or at least unethical happened between President Biden and his son. Whether there's evidence of that or not, the American people have been hearing a one-sided conversation about that for the most part.
Paul, there is the political arena and then there is the legal arena. And as Eugene Scott alluded to, that Hunter's attorney says that the latest indictment is about his last name and that has to do with political pressure being put on the special counsel. He went so far in his interview with my colleague Katie Tur to say that the special counsel is a Republican. What do you make of that claim? If Hunter's last name was, Johnson, for lack of a better term, would these charges have been brought today?
They would not have been. For the tax charges, before he was indicted, Hunter paid back the taxes. We all know people who haven't paid their taxes for years, and almost none of those people get charged in criminal court. It's usually a civil matter. Roger Stone, one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters, owed $2 million in taxes. The IRS took him to civil court and reached a settlement. So Simone Hunter is getting special treatment because his father is the president. He's being treated worse because the Republicans are using him as a pawn. And they weaponize the special counsel to play along with their partisan agenda. But this is real. If Biden is convicted on the gun charges, he could face a sentence of up to 17 years. If he's convicted on the tax charges, he could get up to 25 years in prison.
Oh, my. Paul Butler, thank you very much. Eugene Daniels.